panel to a different time. So that ends our housekeeping items. So officially, behalf of the Vision Expo team, I'm Tarrence, the optical poet. Those who know me, I'm with Vision Expo, and we want to welcome you all to Happy Hour. Now, we do these every Friday with a different thought of Happy Hour. One thing for sure is, hopefully you guys all brought your adult beverage of choice. I know all of our panelists have come prepared with their adult beverages. Hopefully you have as well. But each topic, we try to tailor it to fit a different niche. Now, this week we're going to talk about something that's really important to our industry and the fashion industry in general, and that is collaborations. When we think about collaborations, there are very few people that actually get collaborations, and even fewer that can actually master the art of collaborations. So when I was designing this panel, I knew I had to go to some of the most prolific collaborators in our industry, which is who we have here with us today. So I'm very happy to show our panel, which we'll get to little by little. Our first panelist, I knew if I was going to talk about collaborations, I had to start at the top. I had to start at numero uno. So we think about this guy, if you're not familiar with who this person is, if you're not in the eyewear industry, he really doesn't need an introduction. But he's been in this industry for over 35 years. Some of us call him the godfather of independent eyewear, and he's been doing collaborations for quite a while. So I'm going to invite our first panelist, so Nabil, if you can, just unmute Christian Roth.
Thank you, Tarrence. How sweet. I'm very flattered. Thank you for letting me start, since I'm the senior here tonight.
Absolutely, Christian. No, thank you for coming on. Really appreciate it. First of all, Christian, before I even go into your art, your frames, ask you, how are you and Eric doing under these trying times? How have you guys been?
Thank you for asking, Tarrence. We are lucky. We are fine. You know, we are mostly based in Miami, Florida. And what happened this winter, as every winter, Eric's mother and her husband, they're snowbirds. They come to Naples, Southwest Florida. So they arrived here middle of February, before we all got aware of the crisis. And we had a big discussion. Do we all go back to Europe? We cannot leave them alone in Naples. So it turned out that the neighbor house was available. So nice. Eric and myself moved in. We bought our work-related things. And yes, this is not our normal environment to have a plain white background. Thierry, I love your art up on the shelf. You have to tell me later what it is. But so we're here, we have family quality time. We are spoiled with delicious food. Eric's mother is the best cook I know. And we just enforced a new regulation, social distancing from the fridge. But we manage, and it is what it is. We cannot sugarcoat the situation, but hopefully the fog will lift and there will be brightness soon again. And hopefully the world will be a better world when this is behind us.
Well said, Christian, very well said. I saw on Instagram that you and Eric were making your own custom masks.
Yes,
really cool.
We are. Wait, let me show you what Eric made me for last Sunday.
Oh, that's cool.
So we got the sewing machine, a used sewing machine, nothing special, from a friend a couple of years ago. We never used it, but we brought it to Naples, and Eric is very handy with it. So we thought, you know, these masks are sometimes scary, and but we will have to get used to it, I guess, all over the world. So why not have some fun with it? And it hopefully will keep us safe. And this is probably a new look. And now we have to work on the right eyewear, which goes with it, because not every frame goes well with a mask.
Indeed, I think when all this is over, that mask is going to be a collector's item, a Christian Roth N95.
Charity who wants to produce them, but we're still looking for a producer because we don't want to make money of it. We want other organizations to benefit of it. There's so much unhappiness and misery right now, but to find a maker right now is a hard part.
imagine. So Christian, a lot of us in the industry, we are very familiar with who you are, but can you just let everyone know, especially those who are coming in from other industries and newer to the industry, just tell us a little bit about who you are, how you got started in the industry, just a brief snapshot of a Christian Roth story.
Let me do it in a nutshell. Already as a teenager, and I think the same goes for Eric Dumesh, my partner, I'm only half of this brand. Eric is the other half. We both had the opportunity to come to America as a teenager. We both share the same vision to live in America. So I was very lucky. I left Germany. I'm born in Germany. I guess you can hear it from my accent. I came to New York as a 20-year-old and landed a job as a second assistant of one of the most prolific eyewear fashion photographers of that time. So that brought me into the fashion industry. And it must have been like 1982. Back then, it was Rico Pullman, the photographer. We had the most famous clients from British Vogue to American GQ to Clinique and so on. And for one of those shootings in the morning, our top model, not going to mention her name, showed up totally hangover. And the makeup artist, you know, at a shooting, most of the time, the makeup artist spends with a girl. And they decided we need sunglasses. And everybody knew I had a fetish for sunglasses. So 82, they gave me $200. That was my job, was a great job. And they sent me out to find a cool pair of sunglasses. And I couldn't find anything. And I came back to the studio after lunchtime when the model was finally plastered with beautiful makeup. And I told them, I gave them back the money and I said, I couldn't find anything spending your money. And I thought this is maybe the end of my job, but the whole team laughed and said, why don't you do it on your own? So in the evening, I went back to Eric. We were already living together at that time. And Eric said, that's a challenge, let's do it. And we were fortunate. Of course, the design part was not hard, but to find a manufacturer, to find distribution. But back in those days, you could find a factory who gave you 90 days, and you had 90 days to turn around the product, to collect the money, and to reorder. So that's how, and because of all my connections through Rico Pullman, I knew the editors from Vogue, from Bazaar, and so on. And within a year or two, we were the new kid on the block, because back then there was, in our segment of the industry, there was only Cutler & Gross, LA Eyeworks, Alan Mickley, Robert Laroche. That was it. So it was an easy start for us.
I know that anyone in this industry can write a book. It can definitely be used. So thanks for giving us that brief snapshot. Christian, I want to take a little bit of a walk down memory lane, your early years of eyewear in this eyewear industry. Were there many designers that you knew of that were coming out with eyewear collabs? And are there any that stuck out in your mind?
You know, not many or hardly anybody, because our industry was just about to begin. People still saw eyewear as a medical device and kind of wanted to stay away of it. But one pioneer, no question, we have to give credit to, is Alan Mickley from Paris. And he did incredible collaborations with, for example, Claude Montana. I don't know if you're all familiar with him, but he was the superstar of the early 80s, doing these structured, beautiful clothes. And I think the collaboration between Alan Mickley and Claude Montana was probably, yeah, it paved the way for us to do collaboration. And he had a huge impact. And back then, American Vogue did a big spread of this eyewear photographed by Helmut Newton. So I think the credit goes to Alan and Claude Montana.
Definitely. Shout out to Mickley, absolutely. Christian, I want to talk about one of your first collabs that we were discussing, you and I. Last year, the world, we lost an icon, you can say, someone who's impacted many people in the fashion industry, just the industry, many industries over, and that's Karl Lagerfeld. In 1984, you had the opportunity to collaborate with Lagerfeld on a frame, which is just insane to even think of.
We were very lucky, you know, it's sometimes not only what you know, it's whom you know. And, Eric has an old friend from Paris who knew Karl Lagerfeld and mentioned our name. And as I said, we were already gracing the pages of American Vogue and so on. So Karl wanted to meet us because also Karl was an eyewear fetish. And back then he spent a lot of time in New York. He had his studio in New York. His chief designer was Eric White, one of the most talented designers in our world. And they asked us for a meeting to come in, and they wanted to see what we are doing. And Karl loved a particular style, and I was able to speak in German to him, which maybe helped. And he said, you know what, when I come to the studio in the morning, in the cab, I always see these messenger guys on their bicycle, and they're wearing these sleek glasses with the rear view mirror. So the challenge was to combine his favorite design of our existing collection with little rear view mirrors. Basically, you could see the people behind you. The messengers had it for protection because we all know New York, trucks, a lot of traffic, you have to be careful. So the challenge was to create frames with rear view mirrors attached to the temple.
Makes sense. I'm going to share that picture of that frame.
No, don't show it yet. Please later. That's for
later. I'll stop later. Okay, all right, excellent.
At the end of the story. So we did it, and and also why we love these kind of collaborations, because Eric and me love to go to fashion shows. But as an eyewear designer, you don't really get invited. It's basically for the buyer, for the press, and for big celebrities. So Karl invited, so we succeeded doing, I think, 20 frames with these little rear view mirrors, which Karl purchased from us in order to give to the top editors. And we went to that fashion show in Paris, and of course I was nervous, are they gonna hold on? And all the models at the opening scene walked out backwards on the runway. So we're still, unfortunately, the picture is in Miami. We have a few grainy pictures from that collaboration, but it definitely left an impact. And we were allowed to sell them to a few stores. Karl was very generous. This was not about licensing. And he loved it so much that for the next 15, almost 20 years, we did a number of collaborations on his runway. And also for Chloe, because Karl Lagerfeld was designing for Chloe. And maybe you can show this one picture now, which we had here in Naples, just to give an idea what crazy things we did together.
Sure. I'll share this one first.
Sorry.
No, you're fine.
So this was the antenna frame, probably helpful for social distancing these days. And it's one of our favorite models, Linda Evangelista. So these are looks we did. They were not really, maybe not today you would say it's not commercial, but they made a statement. They attracted the press, the buyer. And at the end, we were able to sell the frame with a much smaller antenna. And if you go to the next picture, this is around 2010, and that's why collaborations are not only about the moment. Collaborations can be about a long-lasting friendship and admiration, because when Mr. Lagerfeld, 25 years later, signed his first eyewear license with Marchand, Mr. Lagerfeld asked Mr. Alberg that Eric and Christian can help him design this collection. And Carl is wearing one of the frames we did 25 years later, definitely a much more commercial look, the Karl Lagerfeld look. And this was a fashion show in Paris we attended, and Rihanna came, and she came in one of our vintage frames. And that's why we love this picture. So both frames are from Eric and myself. The PR of Lagerfeld, you know, PR, told us Rihanna wore it for you to make you happy. Of course, she didn't do it. It was a coincidence. But our point is, of course, the collaboration is about a moment, but it's also to create a long-lasting emotional bond with a designer.
Thank you for sharing that. I think it's amazing just how current your designs are kept even years later. People resurfacing and constantly we see those designs coming up on the runways. So one question for you, Christian. It's in 1990, you and the Christian Roth brand, you were the first eyewear designers to ever be inducted into the CFDA. And then years later, the EDCFDA committee was formed. Can you tell those here who are not familiar with the EDCFDA, what the EDCFDA is, how that came about, and what it's doing for the eyewear industry?
Let me quickly maybe go back to 1990 or 1989, because our fashionista friends in New York told us, if you want to go further, you have to become a member of the CFDA. And we made some outreaches, but the then president of the CFDA, and it's 30 years ago now, a very wonderful person said, but the CFDA stands for the Council of Fashion Designers. We just opened up to accessory designers, but eyewear, it's maybe too early. So since we don't take no for an answer, and we had a very good relationship with Candy Pratt's Price, at that time, the accessory director of American Vogue, who worked for Anna Wintour, that just took over American Vogue from Grace Mirabella. And one day I was in Candy's office at Vogue magazine, still on Madison Avenue, and Candy said, come on, I know you want to become a member of the CFDA. I know it's difficult. I take you to Anna Wintour's office now. We have an idea. And Anna explained me, I totally agree with you. Eyewear is fashion and it needs to be part of the CFDA, but I cannot always tell them what to do, but I have an idea. You know, my two favorite, Anna's quote, my two favorite designers I'm gonna push, and she was right, are Michael Kors and Marc Jacobs. And she said, if you can collaborate on a fashion show with Michael and Marc are going to write a letter to the then president of the CFDA and going to push for you to become a member. Long story short, of course, we didn't miss on that opportunity. With Marc, it took 5 years to establish a collaboration because, I mean, he's the sweetest man in the world, but he's not always easy. But Michael Kors went for an idea because he stands for the chic, sportive, elegant woman. And we created an urban mask for him, which actually today could fit very well. And yes, Michael used it in his fashion show. He wrote the letter to the CFDA and we became a member. And that opened the door for other eyewear designers. And since that, the CFDA is fully behind eyewear designers. And now fast forward around 2013, Gay Gerardi from LA Eyeworks, Selima Saloon from Selima Optique, and Blake Kubahara, we're all friends and we all had this vision. We have to there is no group in our industry, especially for the independent niche designers. We need to create some kind of platform. We didn't know yet how. So we spoke to Stephen Kolb, and Stephen Kolb, the president of the CFDA, and Lisa Smiler, the vice president. And we came to the conclusion, let's create a committee, the eyewear designers of the CFDA. Oh yeah, I have to mention Diane von Fürstenberg, back then the chairman of the CFDA, was very supportive. So we created a mission statement, and we want to create, and I think we are not done yet, it's all work in progress, to create a sense of awareness for the eyewear designers and to foster an overall sense of community and camaraderie. And as Diane von Fürstenberg always said, we are a big family. So our aim is to inspire, to empower, to promote awareness of eyewear design. And we do this through various collaborations, be it promotions, educations, collaborate initiatives, and mentoring. And the last one, I think we did a great thing, the Talent Search Vision Expo, supported by the EDCFDA 2020. And yeah, we have many more plans. And meanwhile, we are almost 20 members. The CFDA has about 500 members. And it's not our decision who can join the club. I have to say that openly. There is a separate acceptance committee at the CFDA. And now Tom Ford is leading the ship. And we are very optimistic that we will grow, because Tom Ford is also an eyewear fetishist aficionado. So
absolutely. I really appreciate what the EDCFDA is doing, and perfect timing. Gay just walked into the room, so shout out to you, Gay, and what you guys are all doing to foster new talent. Okay. And while we're talking about that topic of fostering new talent, I'm going to bring out our next panelist. Kristen, you've been around our next panelist really from the beginning of their introduction to our eyewear community, and isn't it nice to see just how far Coco and Breezy have come over the last few years?
It's wonderful. And you know, we are all of a certain age. We needed new talent. And especially Selima Saloon, and maybe us a little bit, we were very proud to be able to help Coco and Breezy with some advice. And that's what it's all about. The CFDA is a non-profit organization. Of course, so is the EDCFDA. It's not about a business. It's to create a family. It's about to help each other, to give advice. And I think we all need that. And sure, we have to learn it by ourselves, but it's great to have an organization behind us.
Excellent. So let's bring our new panelists to the conversation. Coco and Breezy, you ladies there?
We're here. We are here.
Hey, what's going on?
What's good? Hey, everybody.
Man.
From Brooklyn.
Oh, man. Brooklyn. I was going to ask you how things going in Brooklyn.
We are enjoying our quarantine. We've been doing yoga every day, meditating every day. We went to a park today, and it was raining. We went there because we knew no one was going to be there, and we hugged a tree. I just needed nature.
What?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
We're meditator, yoga, let me hug a tree and look at the glow kind of girls.
Crazy. You know, I was thinking, Coco and Breezy, I met the two of you 5 years ago. You know, it's crazy to think. I mean, in 5 years, honestly, you became my sisters. You guys are so amazing.
Definitely.
You know, definitely. So first of all, in general, for people who don't know who you are, or just people who do want to be more acquainted, just kind of give us this brief snapshot of the Coco and Breezy story. Who are you? How did you get into this industry? A little bit about your brand.
Well, first, I'm so honored to be on the panel with everybody, from Thierry to Christian.
Thierry was the first person we met in the eyewear industry. You guys don't know this, but we met him in France. It was in 2011. We went to Europe for the first time.
Before we made manufactured glasses, when we were just doing DIY frames, our friend Jay introduced us to Thierry.
And we thought Thierry was like the coolest person.
Like the shit. Like, oh my gosh, these goals. And then from there, Salima has been like a huge mentor to us. Salima and Christian, honestly, I feel like we wouldn't be where we are. I remember us emailing Christian Roth like our designs and saying, hey, what do you think about this? And he would literally spend the time to give us his feedback, him and Eric. And I'm super grateful for that. And then Corey, we met him at the fashion trade shows, and we just thought he was the coolest guy on earth. And the knowledge that he has for eyewear is so admirable. And so Coco and I are very honored to be on the panel with everybody, because we admire, you guys are all people that we've looked up to, and we wouldn't be where we are without the three of you, even you, Tarrence. And I know that you guys used to all see us before we even had a full, before we were vertically integrated. We used to just walk around Vision Expo wishing that we had a booth and just walk around with these like crazy outfits. And I'm pretty sure people are wondering like,
they were fly though.
What are they doing? And so I felt, I just want to share my gratitude for even being here. But the way that we started was just like a backstory is that we grew up in Minnesota, and our inspiration for designing eyewear came from being bullied. And that's how we found our love for eyewear. And so for us, eyewear was a protection piece. It was that level of protection to avoid eye contact with people. So growing up in humble beginnings where we couldn't afford to buy expensive frames, we just started doing DIY frames. So we would buy safety goggles and glue on these studs and just like rock them. And then from there, a lot of people were like, oh my gosh, you guys, I want to buy those. And so we moved to New York with less than $500 each. We were walking around with these crazy studded frames on, and Salima saw us. Well, before that, like between like the first 3 months of living in New York, people from like Kelly Osbourne to Rihanna to Lady Gaga, they're all wearing our DIY frames. And that was confirmation that we were doing something. And maybe a couple years after that, we were randomly walking in Soho, and we walked past Salima's store.
And she ran outside and she was like, who are you, bro? And what are those frames? And we're like, you know, we didn't know anything about eyewear. So we're like, oh, you know, we made these in our living room. We glued studs and spikes on these glasses. We didn't know that we were talking to a legend. And she's like, let's do a collaboration. And so at that time, we took one of her signature frames and we added our signature piece at the time, which was gluing studs and spikes on glasses. So that really gave us an introduction into the eyewear space. And then fast forward, we had to actually educate ourselves on how do you go from ideation to product development, and how do you build supply chain? And so we did that, and now we started off with sunglasses, and then once we launched optical, we're in about 400 plus stores. But we're super excited because one thing I can say to anyone that's out there that either wants to start a company or just be inspired, like we started off with these DIY glasses. We saw the bigger picture. We didn't know how to do it, but it's all about building a brand that has an emotional connection and taking the time out to really learn the craft so you can understand how to build it. Because people thought we were crazy. They're like, you guys are gonna be in eyewear? And we're like, yeah. It took a lot
I'm pretty sure the people that saw us walking around at Vision Expo who thought we were models but didn't know that we're actually founders of an eyewear company weren't expecting it. But I think that the beautiful part is that to create a new narrative in eyewear, that you don't, being an eyewear designer and being a founder doesn't look a certain way. And so we're creating that new narrative. And again, we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for like a Christian or a Thierry or a Corey.
Amazing.
Or a
so
Tarrence.
No, appreciate that. So I have a surprise for you, the two of you. I went digging through the archives, and I found something.
Gosh.
I found this. Do you remember this picture?
Yes.
Do you remember this? Christian, you might remember this as well. This was at Vision Expo West 2015. And this was the EDCFDA panel. And Salima was talking. Coco and Breezy, can you just tell everyone who doesn't know who Salima is and why she's such a legend?
Yeah, Salima is a French eyewear designer, and she's been around, I don't know how many years she's been around, but for a really, really long time. And yeah, I mean, I don't know the full history. I just know that she's someone that is so sweet, and she gives her time to people, and she's so passionate about her product and about her story. But she's amazing. Salima is like truly.
Also, I have to say she has the best outfits at Vision Expo.
Oh, big time. big time. But she's so fly. I call her really, she's the queen of the independent eyewear kingdom. So I talk about Salima, you know, she really has. She really has. And this is actually at Vision Expo West 2015. And Salima was at the EDC FDA panel. And then she said, I want you to meet two girls. And I was there and I was like, wow, those girls are so cool. They're so fly. What do they do? And we got a little brief synopsis of what your story was then. You were saying that one day you wanted to have a booth at Vision Expo. Fast forward 3 years later, you had two booths at Vision Expo. So it's really nice to see your story, how you're progressing. So let's talk about that collaboration with Salima. How involved was Salima in the design process with that frame? How involved were you guys in the design process? How did that collaboration take place?
Well, that collaboration was at that time, again, we were only doing DIY. So at that time, she just gave us a signature frame and we didn't understand the production of eyewear. So she gave us a signature frame and we just did our DIY process to it.
And this is in like 2010 when we were living in a small apartment on a futon mattress. Like for us, that was such a big opportunity. We were just in our beginning stages.
But I think the beautiful part is that what Salima saw, it wasn't even about the product. What she did was she endorsed us. Because really, if you look at the quality of that product, it was about her frame and us putting our touch on it. And we didn't really fully sell the product. It was more for press. But what she did was she said, I see these young girls that want to get into a space. Let me just endorse them really fast, right? And I'll use my platform to help them get press and get their name out there. And then I know that if I give them this, because they work hard, they're going to figure it out. And that one little piece helped us figure it out. Fast forward, we got to collaborate with many more people.
Absolutely. We're going to get to this collaboration in just a bit. We're going to bring our next panelist in, Coco and Breezy. You guys kind of gave him an introduction already. You guys said you thought he was the coolest person in France at that time. Well, now he's living in New York. You still think he's the coolest person in New York?
I didn't know you were in New York.
Of course I am.
We have to see you. I had no idea.
Yeah, definitely. This is let's bring Terry into the conversation. Terry, how's it going?
I'm pretty good.
Good to see you. Good to see you.
So Terry, good to see you too.
Let's talk a little bit about. Let's talk about the Terry Lasry. Who's Terry Lasry? What's the Terry Lasry brand all about? And how did you get started in this industry?
So I'm born and raised in Paris. Just moved to New York about 7 years ago. So my story is it's just pure DNA. My father's an optician. My mom an accessory designer. So what else could I do, you know? My parents also had a brand called Larry's that they developed in the 80s, which is still current today. And basically, in 2000, I'm gonna try to make a long story short so we can discuss the more interesting stuff. That this is the early beginning, but like basically in 2000, I decided to join them and like relaunch Larry's. And after a couple of years there, I started designing already the collection, etc. But I was like, it was just an optical collection. They had a few sunglasses in the collection, but I wanted somehow to work with fashion, and the optical industry was not stimulating, or like was not just what I was. This is not just not what I wanted to do. So, and I realized the only way at that time to basically work somehow with fashion was to do sunglasses. And this is a time, like Christian stated, they have very few independent brands. It's all aesthetic and aesthetical product. So it's a little crazy, first of all, to start having the idea in like 2006 to launch an independent sunglass brand with no real money, you know. But at that time, this is a moment where like the logo are no longer really a thing. And I always thought like it's a thing to want a logo on a sweater, a logo on a handbag. It's a very different thing to want a logo on your face. Nobody wants to be a billboard. And that's one. Two, like everybody knows, they had that time, you know, they had a completely correlation between whatever would happen on the runway and what we would see in the sunglasses collection. Basically, like most of the fashion brands were not considering sunglasses as a fashion accessory at all. Like they were just it was purely like a licensing, and like just a few days before the show, they will bring like the licensee will bring like a few sunglasses for the show. Typically, of course, there are exceptions, like Christian was saying, but like in general, and people could see like, okay, well, when I go to Gucci because I like this outfit. I mean, in the accessories in general, there's no real link with the sunglasses. And in general, they had like the standards quality applied to clothing, even to all the delivery goods for all those brands was just not applied to eyewear. So I felt like people could see this, and I felt somehow they had like a room to come up with something creative, qualitative, and very important, RXable. Because at that time, all those brands, whatever the Chanel, the Tom Ford, all those are not RXable sunglasses. And I'm like, there's something over there. So that's what's at the origin of the thought of launching the brand. So I launched the brand in late 2007. Obviously still living in Paris. And basically my thought, I like, and then we're gonna talk about it when you're gonna talk about all the collaborations I did. I like everything that's organic. Sometimes I don't like to provoke things. I like things to come to me to a certain level. So I was like, somehow, I wanted to change also the way we will like sell this new collection. And because, obviously when you want to sell to optical stores, you need a sales rep, you need to show them on trade shows, you need to go to the optical stores. And I was like, I gotta do some like fashion trade shows where actually the buyers are coming to you and the press is coming to you, like in Paris. This is back in the days, obviously we live in a very different world today.
Sure.
And that's how I started like getting like a little network through the US press, through the press in general worldwide, and for like all the cool like fashion stores, department stores, etc. around the world. And quickly, like within the basically less than 2 years after, I was starting having like a pretty cool distribution from Harvey Nichols to Collab. Obviously, we were like one of the main sunglass brand for many years, and to Henry Bendel in New York, which was like really hot at that time. And quickly we got like several celebrities, and and then the rest is history, if I could say. But we're gonna go for it now.
Definitely. So Terry, let's talk about 2019. You had an amazing, busy year in 2019. Anyone watching, you can see that. And I'm going to say this not just because I'm wearing it, but to me, I felt like you had one of the hottest collabs in 2019. That was the Terry Lasry collaboration with Rude. I remember when you launched it, your launch party at the Webster, and I knew the next day there was Offset was wearing it. There was Tiana Taylor wearing it. There were countless celebrities. Nick Young wearing it.
OBJ, PJ Tucker. Like all the NBA and the NFL right now, all the rappers are wearing it. It was pretty impressive, yeah.
Absolutely. Did you expect this frame to be that successful?
So I'm gonna be very honest. Well, there's just listen. Here's the story. Here how this happened. So first of all, I know you want us to talk about it after, but like I did several collaboration in I started doing collaboration in like 2010. So this was like it's been 10 years of collaborations, but between 2010 and 11 with Acne Studio that we talk about later, with Fendi 2015, I did like 2 major, very like established brands, like established houses, like to collaborate with. And after that, I was like, you know what, now that I've done this, I can just do whatever I want, collaborate with whoever I want. It doesn't have to be big. It can be like an up and coming brand. It can be it's just organic. It's just like, hey, we're gonna sit down next to each other. We're gonna chat. If we get along, hey, we shake hands and let's do it. That's very simple. I'm not interested in being like an eyewear supplier. I'm not interested in signing any kind of license deal. So very simple. And I started doing like a few more AG collaborations after that with Dr. Wu, was like a massive like title artist based in LA. And Enfant Riche Déprimé was like a brand, like the designer was also like was the right hand of Kanye for Yeezy for many years, and was like had like a major like similar actually following as Rude. And in the summer I was in LA in August of 2019. So the brand Rude is very young. I know Corey knows it like for many years, but most of the people, because he knows Rudy for many years, but most of the people are not very familiar with Rude until the last couple of months. So I'm in LA in August of 2019, and Rude had like the whole like window of Maxfield Malibu, and it just did a pop-up with them, and I was familiar with the name, and I was in LA. Literally 2 days later, I got a DM from Rudy and George, who runs the company with him. And they're like, hey, sir, we love what you do. We'll love to do something. I was like, well, I love what you guys do too. And like, let's meet up. Like, I just left LA. I was like, it's okay. Like, this is Fashion Week. Like, we're coming for Fashion Week in 2 weeks in New York. Let's meet up. And at that time, well, we sit down, we get along, and it's very simple. We literally, we just like appreciate each other's, and we're like, okay, let's do it. But at that time, it's a big gamble on my end because Rouge is not known. Rouge is not known. And I'm like, I like those guys. I believe in those guys. I believe in the brand. Let's make it happen. And then it's just like a ping pong for the next few months until December, till we start getting the first prototypes. And by January, there's something, a crazy hype, the real definition of hype that's like surrounding like the brand Root and its designer Ruji, was becoming suddenly like a little superstar. And the brand is like what everybody wants. And basically by the time he started like just showing like the frame on Instagram, like just in January, they would be launched like 3 months later. People freak out, like something I have never ever seen for. I never seen anything like this for Eyewear, literally. And basically we decide to launch them in April. So in April, you can't even imagine the number of people reaching out like the days before through DM, through emails. I mean, it was a similar hype you get for sneakers. That's not something I have ever seen. I have ever witnessed for sunglasses in the history of sunglasses, literally. This kind of craziness and enthusiasm. And at that time, so if you ask me in April, yes, I knew this would be massive, and it was massive for years until today. And we actually did another start that was in there, that was called the Revision, no longer the Rodeo. That was in there like when we're showing in January, and that will probably gonna have to launch somehow online, because this is likely the only way to work right now, online towards the end of May maybe, or maybe June. It was supposed to be launched obviously like normally early April, but it's not happening. And so yeah, like if you ask me in September, did you picture this? No, obviously no. But did you ask me in April, already the difference is like spectacular. So that is no longer a surprise, but it's amazing. So yeah, it's amazing. Like they promote, we promote, they sell, we sell. So this is why there's this like, it's so big. It feels like it's everywhere because you have the two parties are working. And whenever I did collab like with a lot of other brands, most of the time it was either us only selling and promoting, either only the brand for legal reasons. That was only like selling and promoting. So that's very different when you have the two parties put this trend together, the hype, the distribution, like the creativity together. Well, then it leads to what you saw with this Frank.
Yeah, no, it's big. And I think that just shows that when two passionate artists get together, what can happen with something like a collab. So you mentioned earlier about Luigi being now a celebrity, but I think in Eyewear we have celebrities as well, which brings me to our next panelist. I know, Terry, you've known this guy for quite a while, haven't you?
Yep.
Mr. Vintage Frame himself. Corey, are you there?
I'm always here.
Corey, good to see you, brother. How you doing?
I'm listening. I'm taking it all in.
Taking it all in. Corey, so how's life in Canada?
I mean, it's good. Where I live in Montreal, it's the most populated place for the disease. So I have a second home. I have a home office in the middle of the woods. So I've been up here with everyone for, I think, going on 6 weeks now. But everything's good, man. I'm okay. Can't complain.
Oh, man, I'm trying to get that Corey Shapiro level and have a second home in the woods. That's what's up.
I mean, you know, the city can't have me full time. I'm a little too much. they need a pause from me.
I know that's right. So, Corey, you have a very unique business model in our industry, which I think
Yes,
people in this industry even realize. Can you just let the industry know a little bit about the Corey Shapiro vintage frame story?
So I am not from the optical industry. I have zero ties to it from my family or what you would call formal education. But glasses, for me growing up, always evoked a certain feeling. And I come from fashion school, of where I was asked to leave because my fashion brand at the time was too disruptive. And every time the media was talking to me about anything that had to do with anything I was involved in, I would always throw shade to the school. So the school had asked me to leave, and for my parents' sake, they would give me a diploma and sign a non-disclosure so I couldn't talk about them for 7 years. And I majored in fashion marketing, which was my formal education. And this story became such a crazy phenomenon amongst the fashion industry that there was a very prominent fashion history professor who said that he would teach me fashion history as my major, because the only thing that's truthful in fashion and not interpreted is the history, because obviously it's factual. And my original background was in sneakers, and this was about 20 years ago. So I'm a world-renowned sneaker collector, more specifically in the vintage sector. And I had a sneaker store and I had a fashion brand, and I was looking for something to do that had some type of a historical fashion background. And every one of my businesses prior had sizes, and my downfall was always, the medium when people wanted a large, or the 9.5 shoe when someone needed the 12. And I was like, well, I got to find something that makes sense. And my passion from eyewear stems, from back in the day. So I was like, well, most people don't even know eyewear has sizes. And the eyewear industry at the time wasn't fun. And, there was a big disconnect from the originals, like, the Run DMCs and guys like that, and the David Bowies and the Elton Johns. And so I decided to shift my digging knowledge for sneakers, my fashion history, my factual and formal training, and my first business, which was baseball cards and comic books and Beanie Babies, sadly, and kind of throw them all together and go at making a stint in the eyewear industry. And the interesting thing when I entered the eyewear industry is you could go and see many people, and many people could tell you about the technological advancements of eyewear, but very, very few people could tell you about the history of the fashion part of it. So I set out to become a fashion historian in the optical world. And whether people know it or not, I've touched most people's businesses in general. So a funny story, I probably hold more Christian Roth glasses than anyone in the world. I have thousands and thousands of glasses, and a picture that he brought up with Karl Lagerfeld and Rihanna. So his vintage glasses were placed to Rihanna from me. So that it all kind of comes full circle into different things. So my business originally was called the company formerly known as, because we sell products that were formerly known as, and we were very famous from going around to people, and people would be like, oh, what do you do? And we'd hand them this black card with black writing on it, and it would say the company formerly known as on one side and the number on the other side, and we'd give it to people. And if someone's like, oh, what do you do? We'd be like, not for you, and we take it back. And that was like, that was the kind of the buzz, and so my company, Vintage Frames Company, is the largest purveyor of designer vintage eyewear, I would say, probably on the planet. So we stock just over 1.2 million designer vintage units from various brands, every brand, and which is how Coco and Breezy and I met each other at one optical store, at one fashion trade show, actually. And most people know us as the optical purveyors to the stars. So I have very personal relationships with most of the basketball players, celebrities, from the Lady Gagas to the newer guys, the LeBrons, whoever you can imagine. And our goal has always been to not only preserve the history of fashion for everyone, because there's no concise lineage, and it's very choppy even in the books, but to make eyewear fun again. So being that I'm from Canada, which is an interesting hub place, but not the most economically relevant place in the world, we had a couple of obstacles as a business. And the one thing that I always found, which was cool about eyewear, and Coco and Breezy kind of touched on it, is eyewear provides a barrier between you and the rest of the world. And I always thought that what was more interesting about the frames than the frames itself, what was actually going on behind it. You know, and a lot of people had used eyewear to make statements because, you know, let's say you wanted to kind of turn into this guy or girl and walk into a room and really, you know, give this whole personality that might not really be you. You could walk into a room with the eyewear, you have a barrier between your eyes and someone else's. And if you felt uncomfortable, you could just, you know, take the glasses off, put it in your pocket, and no one was the wiser. Whereas people trying to make statements at the time with t-shirts and stuff like that, you'd look pretty fucking crazy if you took your t-shirt off in the middle of a room, you know? So
Corey, it's a family show, brother. It's a family show.
oh, I'm sorry. I thought all opticians were over 18. I apologize. Considering you asked me to go and get booze, I'm pretty sure we could swear if we could. But I'll keep it PG for you, Fancy. So, you know, my company resides in Montreal. We're very international. I've pretty much lived on a plane for the past 10 years. So this pause in life that all of us have had a pause to, you know, either reflect on ourselves or medical conditions or our businesses or whatever we, you know, want to call this, has kind of been interesting because it's allowed me to take a step back from being at the beck and call of the rest of the world. More recently, in the past couple of years, you know, as my business gained traction through us applying to many stores, having a rather present website and a major social following throughout different disciplines, we moved into production. And while all these companies were, you know, trying to make things more technologically advanced, and there was companies like Luxottica's and Safilo, who in my opinion were ruining the industry, there needed to be someone that kind of stepped up and kicked everyone in the, I'll say testicles, because I don't think you want me to go to another term, but there needed someone to come in and kind of give this industry a kick in the ass, the same type of way, you know, that the gentleman from Christian Roth came in and was a breath of fresh air, the same way as Thierry did the same thing, and Coco and Breezy. I'm a little bit more aggressive than everyone. You know, people know me for walking into an optical show wearing a very elaborate custom jacket that says, if you don't trust us, go to fucking Lens Crafters. Pardon me, swear again. But, you know, we believe that this industry has needed really to have someone to step into it and to stake a claim and say, look, you know, eyewear, yeah, it's cool for medical, but there's a whole different game for this. There's fun, there's colors, there's sizes, there's shapes, there's old techniques that people have forgot because they can't do it quick enough. So, you know, what we did was we purchased a factory, which is pretty unlike most optical companies. And we taught the factory how to use all these vintage machineries that people had forgot for many, many years. So all these practices that people didn't think was very cost efficient or made any sense anymore, we were like, well, let's take a step back from this and let's teach people how to do this in, you know, back in the day. And middle of my career in this, I helped to raise brands back into their light where they should have been, like Ultra and Cazal and many other brands, but there was nothing that I could sink, you know, my teeth into and really go full out. So as much as it was like really cool being able to sell and place vintage Christian Roth stuff, for instance, you know, if we did a thing with Rihanna, we would have maybe 2-3 of those glasses if we were lucky. The whole world would want that glass, but how could we monetize that type of a thing? So since I can profess that I've pretty much touched more individual pieces of eyewear because of where I come from than most people, because of the digging, I decided to go at making our line, which was vintage frames. And it was a line with 2 very different ideologies. One, which was very inclusive, showing everyone that you can really provide a very, very high quality frame for an affordable price. And another one being our Masterpiece series, which is a very heavily vintage inspired line that takes different cues from different people, but showcases a different type of craftsmanship and shows the industry that there's not only a life behind the frames, but transparency, because a lot of optical labs and a lot of people who design, I would say a lot of optical labs, and I apologize if it offends anyone, but very, very few people will show the inside of their optical labs. And very, very few people will let the world see the process, where if you turn into my social media with my staff, you'll see that my staff are very untrained in typical optical format, but we cut more lenses, we do more bevels, we do crazy things because the people that we bring are passionate about what they do, and it's kind of blown the cover on these people that want to hide behind doors of a lab. So, you know, I'm happy to be here. This is, you know, an unbelievable panel, and it's really interesting, especially that the last piece of this panel was the kind of the Christian Roth guys, which I've never had the pleasure of meeting in person, but, you know, own and respect and have, you know, a lot of their stuff, even down to their, you know, Karl Lagerfeld optical affairs stuff.
I want to get to this collaboration, right? So last year, to me,
King of Rock.
There you go. One of the most impactful groups celebrating 35 years. And to commemorate, you came out with a double XL frame collaboration with Run DMC. How was it working with, you know, these legends here that have an impact on an entire culture and being collaborating with them?
So DMC in music, especially in hip hop and I guess in pop culture, because they weren't just a hip hop group, pioneered eyewear as being something for a fashion. And a lot of people at the time when DMC started to be prevalent only wore eyewear more for a medical thing, especially in the disciplines or the parts of the industry that I particularly care about. I had worked with D throughout the years, kind of getting him back some of the stuff that he had brought forth and lost over the years. And D had hit me up with his manager, Eric, because we do lots of music collabs. We put out usually 8 to 10 at a minimum a year. And D was like, look, it's our anniversary. We want to do something really special. Can we put together this program and do, you know, an anniversary frame for us? And it was the first time that Run DMC oddly made their own frame. And we put this whole capsule collection around it, which perfectly married for us what I'm interested in doing, which is the life behind the frame, preserving a portion of culture, and offering something to people who might not have been there, but have seen glimpses of it and kind of needed a little bit more of a, you know, a push to understand it. And so that was, you know, probably one of my, you know, favorite moments. I took a picture with him, which is very rare for me to take pictures with my celebrity artists because I really view ourselves as equals. And this French gentleman who took pictures of us actually got me crying a little bit. And yeah, and my dad got a hold of it, and he has a big picture of me crying like a Michael Jordan meme, and it's a big funny family thing. But it really was, you know, a full circle moment from being able to not only work with Ultra to preserve the history of the Goliath and to do collaborations with them with it, but to actually, you know, make my own version of what was originally a Goliath and hear the whole story of, you know, how he did a concert in LA and they opened with the Beastie Boys, and they stepped outside the stadium and were going to their van, and they didn't realize what type of a commotion they'd caused in the industry, and they had to run, and they ran, and Leor Cohen, who was their tour manager at the time, stepped on DMC's glass, and it was actually a Cazal at the time, and he went looking around LA, went to LA Eyeworks, and LA Eyeworks supported Ultra, and that's how the Ultra Goliath and this whole thing came. And, you know, even the misconception in the eyewear industry that, or in pop culture in general, most people think that that frame's a Cazal. And it's funny because Ultra obviously owns Cazal in a certain sector, but being able to give a real story and a real lineage and being able to connect all the dots is, you know, what I'm here to try to stake a claim and do.
Really dope frame, and what an iconic person. So guys, we've actually run out of time. We've actually been doing this an hour. So I know we had quite a few collabs to go through, but I'm gonna do this like a rapid fire. I'm gonna go through each of you, and I'm going to name a collaboration, and just give me a 1 minute memory or a 1 minute moment about that collab. So Terry, let's start with you, Terry. Let's talk about Terry Lasry times Fendi. This is a high fashion luxury brand. What can you tell us about that?
So the story of the Fendi collaboration is so LVMH purchased Fendi from the Fendi sisters in 2000. And for several years, Fendi's it's an established name, but it's not big. It's not gigantic. And it's basically in 2012, they bring a new CEO coming from Vuitton called Pietro Beccari, who is now the CEO of Dior. And they give him the mission basically to bring Fendi within 5 years to the level of like Dior, Vuitton, or Hermes. And among the first couple of days, one of these priority is to bring me on board. That's the story of it. I've been told, obviously. So he basically heard about me myself as a designer and the brand through different brands, through different friends of him who were wearing Thierry Lasry. And at that time, the collection was like purely feminine. And basically, in 2012, he sent me some like the licensing director and like the product, the accessories director to meet me at Mido. And at that time, Fendi is about to change licensee. They are with Marchand, if I'm correct, and then at the end, they were going to sign with Shapiro, but like it's going to take 18 months to be finalized almost. And at that time, they just sit down with me. It was like, well, we're really interested in what you've been doing, and we're especially impressed that you managed to create a signature without a logo. And which was probably my best achievement in general as of today. It's like you can most of the time really recognize the Thierry Lasry person glasses and there's no logo. So just by the design itself. And also a big compliment. It was like, we're also like really fascinated by like the kind of celebrity following you have. We managed to have all of our handbags on celebrities, but just doesn't work with the sunglasses. And like, you also have like a really prestigious and exclusive distribution, especially in the independent boutiques, whatever the optical stores or like fashion boutiques. So, and you go right away, it's like, so basically we would like to create a capsule collection with you, and we would like you to come to Rome and work directly with Silvia Fendi. And I don't know if you can imagine, and you know, like Christian was saying, there's something really important, you know, when you've been in this business like for more than 10 years, you know how much we've been struggling as eyewear designers to be accepted through fashion. It was always like, eyewear is not fashion. So suddenly to hear from such an established fashion house, to hear like, you're gonna work with Silvia Fendi herself, just obviously was pure magic. And so basically it's going to take a little bit of time, about like 16 months later, they fly back to Paris because it took a lot of time for them to renegotiate the deal with Shapiro. We sit down in Paris, they're like, okay, are you ready to come to spend a couple of days in Rome next week? I was like, okay, let's see. So I go over there, I meet with Silvia and just get along. They were like giving me like full white card. I will do whatever I want. I have like literally absolutely whatever I want. It was just, which was pretty incredible. And at the end, it ended up like, actually you can show the video so I can say something about the video.
Yeah, you know what, Terry, I'm going to show that at the end. I'm going to get to some of the other collabs.
So just, there's something really special about this collab. That so obviously it's a Fendi product, but it was signed Fendi and Thierry Lasry. And before, you know, there's all the whole like Louis Vuitton and Supreme, but before that, there's never ever has any LVMH brand had the name associated like with another brand, especially it was not with an individual. And that I was like, this is definitely gonna make history. And then it's like, that will forever be part of the DNA of the brand. So that was pretty magical. And have access to the budget for them, because for them, it basically, by the time they launched the capsule collection, they were also launching, it was on the side of the Fendi collection, and it was produced by Shapiro though, but like basically for them, it was the way to promote like the launch of the Fendi collection in general and bring all the eyes on the brand for it and be like, I can't read.
Coco and Breezy. I can't read it. I can't read it.
Will you marry me?
Oh, you marry me. I can't. No, I'm sorry.
So yeah, just to finish, it was really interesting. It was what was magical. It's like you're dealing with the LVMH. So in terms of like marketing, in terms of like budgets, basically in general for events that we do major event during Paris Fashion Week, like major event in New York. Then I mean, I didn't know you then, Tarrence, but I was like really out of this world. And at the end, I created not just the glasses, what you will see in I didn't just create the glasses, I also created the patterns. And the patterns, Silvia loved the patterns so much that the patterns ended up just not just in the glasses, but in the packaging, in the windows of Fendi stores, and even in sometimes wool walls inside some Fendi stores. It's like, it was a window of Barney's, it was a window of it was just really crazy.
Absolutely. We're going to show that video towards the end. So Coco and Breezy, I'm going on to you ladies now. Let's talk about, give me a 1-minute thought and 1-minute memory about this epic collaboration here.
Okay, so I'm not going to speak too much on that because there's a lot of press about that. And I want to say rest in peace to Prince. That was our friend. We had a very personal relationship with him because we want to announce a
big collaboration that has not been announced. It hasn't been announced yet.
Oh, is it exclusive? Are we getting an exclusive announcement here?
You guys are getting an exclusive announcement. We haven't announced it, but from the company that we're working with, they reached out to us and said they got the Vision Expo email and they said we can announce it to y'all. So Corey, you want to talk about disrupting the eyewear industry, right?
That's why I love Corey.
That's why I love Corey, but we're about to disrupt the eyewear industry because we are partnering with a company that has sold over 25 million frames. We are launching a new category in the preteen collection, and we will be creating a more accessible line for preteens ages 8 to 12 with Zenni. All glasses under beautiful frames, cool designs under $50 with prescription online. And something that's very important to us is that we're young girls that were born in the projects. We grew up with not a lot of income, and we wanted to be stylish, but we couldn't afford things. We thought about, with this new economic change, how can we give something to preteens from ages 8 to 12 that they can be stylish? When kids go out to buy glasses, one of the biggest things that we hear about is that kids lose their frames on purpose because they don't have a frame that they feel like fits their style, right? So we decided, all right, let's partner with,
when they reached out to us.
Well, they didn't decide, they reached out to us, but it was a really big thing we had to think about. But when it comes to the younger generation, why would we sell frames for kids that lose their glasses that are
for over $200?
It doesn't make sense.
The customer behavior is changing, and we are the ones. We're in the middle of we're on the celebrity side, we're on the business side, we're on the marketing side, the branding side, and the tech side. And so we have to put all those brains together, and it only makes sense to launch a preteen brand with a company like that. And the whole point of collaboration in today's world is to collaborate with the unexpected. We're living in a world of the unexpected. We have no idea what next week is going to be. And so we have to create those collaborations with brands like we did a collaboration with Jolly Rancher, Twizzler, Foot Locker, Prince. It's like Transitions. It's all these brands that you want to expect a brand like us to collaborate with, and it's called juxtaposition. The beautiful part is that putting two things that don't go together, but they actually do truly go together because each person needs a something.
So pretty much we're saying we're going to have the biggest kids collection starting fall 2020.
Right. Hey, let's all drink to that. Let's all drink to Coco.
My glass is empty,
this is amazing. This is amazing. Congratulations. This is exclusive.
It's exclusive. We haven't announced it.
Yeah. Okay. Excellent. Excellent. All right, Corey, I'm going to you. So let's talk about collab. Give me a 1-minute reaction or memory of vintage frames times Metro movement.
Well, since you've already censored me early on.
No censor, go for it, Corey.
No, I'm at Metro late night doing an appointment for him, and he was like, I've always wanted to do an eyewear collab. And, when most people say that, it's very rare that someone will turn it around right away. And we'd sketched something, and he was like, I want to do something that we really have and bring back an item that was something that came in my past. And so we kind of came up with this thing at South by Southwest, and we had it to market about 4 days. We actually used the base of a Hilton frame for it, which was very interesting. So some of our earlier collabs were actually with vintage commodities that hadn't been released. So a lot of companies had kind of deaded styles that they weren't happy with. We own them, and we did that. So not only was it, a recycling program, but it was very, very quick to market. We have something else coming out with Metro and some interesting stuff as well. Hopefully a Thierry collab one day, maybe a Coco and Christian Roth.
Okay, yeah. All right.
I've been nagging Thierry about it for I think 6 years.
Yep.
Yeah, the king of acetate meets the metal guy. No, bro,
No.
nothing is exclusive.
No
My life,
exclusive?
my
No.
life's like the Truman Show. As soon as I
love
put
it.
it up on my Instagram, it's a
Corey's
wrap.
the culture. Yeah,
I
Corey
love
is
it.
the culture. Everybody
Definitely.
here should want to collaborate with him. He is the culture in eyewear.
You know, just Corey, honestly, man, it's just great watching you, man. I love watching on social media. I love watching your drops come out all the time. You know, you're always surprised
Thank
with
you.
those, man. So it's really amazing having you here with us. You know,
Thank you.
Look forward to doing more.
And it's really always amazing watching the outfits that you wear.
Yes, Terrence is so fly.
Yeah, the kilt god.
The kilt god, harem pants and kilts. I love it. All right, so Christian, let's end with you. I want to talk about the collaboration. Let's talk about Christian Roth times Stephanie Stylander and Kate Moss.
Yeah, every designer needs a muse. Oops. Oh, here she is. Every
Yes.
designer
Oops.
needs a muse. And Eric and me were very fortunate. Quickly back to memory lane again. 1991, a young, beautiful, wave-like model walks into our showroom with her stylist to pick a frame for shooting with Stephanie Frinder-Stylander. We forgot about it until these pictures came out and Kate kept wearing our frames for the next 15 years, different looks. Sometimes we ran into her in clubs. She was always sweet and fun, and we read a lot what she has been doing, but she has been an amazing person. And what impressed Eric and myself so much, because a model is a model, but Kate knew what she wants. She has style, she has class. So years go by, and these pictures from that particular shooting when she was 17 years old and hardly known showed up in art books, in galleries. We went to homes where suddenly there was this picture, oversized,
Wow.
signed by Stephanie Frinder-Stylander. So
Wow.
fast forward 2018, this photographer who took this picture told her she's planning a book about it and she would put this picture on the cover and maybe there would be a way to collaborate. So meanwhile, we are part of the Dieter group and we shared this information with Mickey Dillon, the owner of Dieter, and he was totally fond about it, and Dieter succeeded to create a collaboration, an official collaboration with Kate Moss and the photographer Stephanie Frinder-Stylander. And we had a lot of fun. It was maybe little work because we redid that frame Kate was wearing in 1992. But again, it's about emotional bonds. It's things you cannot predict, and we are very happy we did it. And it's an unusual collaboration because usually you do put a lot of creative effort into a collaboration. In this case, we did the same frame, but we are proud about it because it's a frame which is hanging as art in so many living rooms or executive floors, because it's more than just an image. It's Kate's attitude, and she knows how to rock a pair of sunglasses, and she still does.
Absolutely. In fact, some people say, Christian, that Harper's Bazaar photo is what launched her career. Really put out there.
Thank you. That's a compliment to Stephanie, and there is a lot of truth to it. But Kate would have become a star anyway because she probably was born to be a star.
Well said. Someone from the audience said, greatest collaboration ever, Christian Roth and Eric Domege. So shout out to you guys, Christian and Eric. So excellent. So guys, so this ends our collaboration talk. I want to thank all of our panelists for being on and participating. Christian, thank you again for bringing us down memory lane and really showing us what happened earlier, that birth was happening now. Corey, love watching you. Thanks for being on here. Thanks for showing us the deep side of this industry. Terry, love that you're always shocking us. I can't wait to see what collaboration happens next. Coco and Breezy,
So many.
we love you.
So many.
I know. I can't wait to see. You always have surprises up your sleeves. So I can't wait to see the next Terry Lasry collaboration. Coco and Breezy, we love you. What can we say? You guys inspire so many of us in the industry, and your story is continuous. We can wait to see that.
I say one thing.
Sure.
I think that I have to say this, being a woman of color, I think that there's a lot of optical shops that always ask us to have less people of color in our campaigns. And since we are some of the only women.
You really get that?
Yeah, we get that. We do. It's an issue. And I want to bring it up since there's 102 people in here. It's our responsibility to show representation as Black and Puerto Rican women in this industry. We don't ever really get to see when we're shopping in even clothing stores, let alone eyewear shops. We don't really get to see a lot of people that look like us. And so it is our duty and our job to have representation and have a voice for not just everybody, but also people of color, because there are people in the industry, but they're not represented.
Agreed, which is amazing how you guys on this panel. No, listen, I think, to tell you the truth, Breezy, that could be a happy hour topic of its own.
Yeah, because you could never go up to a Ray man and say you need to put more Black people in your campaign, but people tell us all the time that we have too many POC people in our campaign. But there's a lack of representation. So I'm just gonna be a fucking rock star as we are.
Don't swear, he gets all screwed up by that.
Corey.
I think that we all need to continue to just be a community, and the eyewear industry is just very it's a different, everything's changing. And also, let's think about the social issues that are happening in America and everywhere while we think about our space.
Definitely. No, well said. Listen, we love having you guys in there. We love the energy you bring to the industry. Thanks for bringing that up as well. And it's just love, this is good as watching all of you. So thank you all for coming. Listen, everybody, there is going to be a survey after this. We sign off here. Please feel free to fill it out. We're asking you to bring us out. Nabil, can you just say goodbye to everybody, to bring us out on a collaboration mindset? Can you play the video Terry Lasry times Fendi while everyone fills out the survey? Please, man.
Nope, it doesn't have the sound, I think.
Okay, you can just play the video. There it is. Excellent.
Super cool.
Well done, Terry. Well, everybody, this ends our happy hour. Take one last drink for everybody. We'll see you guys next week, Friday. Next week, Friday's happy hour is entitled, it's actually a speed dating. It's going to be a speed dating with Wendy Sally, owner of Sally Opticians. So if you are a current retail store owner or you're hoping to open your own retail store, tune in next week. The link is in my bio where you can receive one-on-one mentorship from Wendy Sally. So you guys enjoy the weekend and we'll see you guys next week.
So you guys, stay safe.
Cheers, salud.
Thank you, T.
Terry, man, appreciate that, brother. Thanks for doing that.
That was fun.
No, it was. You know, we had a real captive audience as well. I mean,
that was awesome.
So thank you guys all for coming in and sharing that.
Tarrence, really thank you for giving us all this opportunity.
Thank you guys for taking this. I think we could do part 2 of this one day because there's so much more about collaborations that we can talk about.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Terrence, thank you, because you're a visionary. And I think that I'm grateful to be on a panel with Christian, Corey, and Thierry. So thank you for having us.
Yeah, you know, it's crazy. It's crazy looking at like 2015 Coco and Breezy, which you guys all were fly, and we knew you guys were going to be a force. But 2020 Coco and Breezy is like,
it's different.
Good Lord, you know what I mean? It's like, wow. It's great to watch. And Christian, it's like they get a piece of eyewear history that's still very much relevant now. It was a good mix on the panel.
Really was.
Thank you.
Definitely.
Well, thank you guys.
Coco and Breezy, I love your new project.
Thank you. Thank you so
Okay.
much. Thank you.
You earned it. So much.
Appreciate it.
So
Thank
much
you.
talent.
Well,
Cheers to disrupting. Let's
Yes, yes.
cheers to
Disrupting.
disrupting. Let's keep
y'all.
on disrupting.
Yes.
Our own way.
Yes.
drank all the wine.
Cheers to disrupting. Absolutely.
Thank you guys.
Okay, guys. Take care.
Bye,
All
y'all.
right,
Bye.
Steve. All right, Steve. All right, ladies, we'll see you. Christian, we'll see you. All right, thanks again. Give regards to Eric as well, Christian.
Thank you. He
Tell
sent
Eric
you.
we say hi.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye.
We're good for the poll, Terrence.
All right, I'm signing off.
Thanks.